Do you think racism is a problem that cannot be solved?
Yes, actually. If it's something unfamiliar, a human would be afraid just for protection, right?
A certain group of people have the ownership of the world. They try to push themselves over everyone else.
And that's not what I was talking about.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Because we are different. A view is built of a white superior person, and maybe an Asian person would become inferior.
There was war with Iraq, war within Syria. Most of these wars are proxy wars that is done by Western countries.
Yeah, but in the end of the day, it's survival of the fittest, you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit selfish like that.
Just because people treat you badly doesn't mean you can treat them badly. That makes you no different from them. This is an unscripted, open conversation about racism and why it happens. And maybe by the end, it gets a bit controversial. I hope you guys watch till the end. And as you do it, don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot to me. Do you think racism is a problem that cannot be solved?
Yes, actually. It's natural to be, in a way, racist. Like, we always differentiate between things. And back in time, when we would, I guess, meet people who we never seen before, looking so different from us, it looks scary. It was natural to be a bit afraid, because if it's something unfamiliar, a human would be afraid just for protection, right? Nowadays, it's not unfamiliar anymore how we look, because the world is so globalized. We know all kinds of different ways that we can look like. But we still know we're humankind. We still know there is no essential difference between us. But it's still not helpful to reduce racism, or maybe to reduce but not remove. Removal seems impossible.
Yeah, like just to redefine what you said. What you mean is more like it's animalistic instincts to, or survival instincts to kind of like when you see something that is different from how the kind of like people you are used to, there is always this instinct that kicks in, that this is different, this could be dangerous as well, right? And that's what you wanted to, that was your point of view, at least in the beginning.
Yeah. Just like meeting a new human, a human looking differently, just like something else, maybe a dangerous animal or an animal we haven't seen before. Back in the day, that was instinct to protect yourself. It's something unfamiliar. Today, it cannot be. We cannot go around blaming it on instincts at all, actually, because seeing colonialism, when let's say, I don't know, Americans, today's Americans that were maybe the English and the Spanish back in the days, came over and took over the Indian, they look down on them automatically because it's
they look different.
They look different, and somehow it's worse. See, white people tend to look positively about themselves. Yeah, superior complex. And maybe the superior complex is what made us where we are today. You know, maybe it's a stupid strength in a way. But yeah.
Or I would say like it might be the reason why only a certain group of people have the ownership of the world. So I wouldn't call it like superior in any sense. Instead of being in balance with everything, they try to push themselves over everyone else. So it depends on how you look at it.
The Darwinism and the survival of the fittest.
Darwin is, it makes sense. I would say like, yeah, definitely. Like if you think from...
We're getting less, aren't we? We don't want to, with the development of technology, and we're thriving so much economically that we get educated and we don't want to
differentiate
breed.
People, yes.
We don't want to breed. That's less white in the world, so to say. So the Darwinism doesn't work anymore. Anyway, but yeah, I think racism is a thing that's partly natural and a lot cultural and historical. We need to rework it.
Exactly.
It's a responsibility.
Exactly, and I would say like it has to do more with what is your worldview, where have you been? The people who differentiate based on color or religion or any kind of other aspects of a person is less traveled. They haven't seen the world enough, and the world revolves around them, and they are the center of the world. So it comes from a lack of knowledge or ignorance, but it's also like a natural instinct to go with. Like people definitely would feel like, oh, this person doesn't look like me. so I don't know how this person thinks. And some people, I would say, get attracted to it because it looks different from you, whereas some people get scared on how can I trust this person. It all depends on, as a society, what is the value that you cultivated within the children, or what are you basically watching online. And
Yeah, for sure.
so, yeah, but why do you think it's so hard to trust people from other cultures? Why do you think that happens?
So firstly, I don't think it's as hard with different people. I think it really depends which people and also on who you are and what kind of country you're from and culture and family. But well, ultimately there is this preconception that there's this big difference, because usually it's across continents, right? It's not just countries, but cross-continental type of difference that differentiates the races. It's usually from somewhere far away they come, so they are some different people with their different values. Also, obviously there's a phenomena like 9/11, terrorism. Things happen, the world is global. Things happen, and then suddenly we generalize because that's a human psychological phenomena. We tend to generalize things. We learn, and so we generalize so many things.
Yeah, I think like it's an easy way to see the reality by generalizing, putting people on clean boxes.
Humanly, we just try to explain the world to ourselves, but we end up blaming innocent people.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, for example, like we did talk about it before, like if you look at, going back to the question, why is it hard to trust people who is from a different culture? It has to do with association of what is priorities in life. If you come from a place where there was a lot of war, or like a particular way of living, your internal systems are aligned to that. So when you come to a different culture and when you see that these people act in a certain way, sometimes you don't understand why they act in certain ways, and that causes miscommunication, and that causes lack of trust. So all the people who move from their country to a new country, they go there and they look at these people as foreigners. They don't look at them as someone who is from my place or who is me.
It's two-sided. The ones who come see the others as someone different from them as well.
Yes.
And the ones who are there to welcome them also see them as different. And so it is, because we are different. The thing is that we're not as fundamentally different as it can seem. Partly it's communication, right? So luckily many people speak English, but some refugees don't. For example,
just to clarify, refugees is people who are running away from war or like problems happening. So they try to come to a different country to feel safe. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes people don't have a language to share. Often English works, but many times it doesn't. And if you do have a language to share, it's easier to overcome all the cultural differences and misunderstandings that could happen, because you could communicate and clarify. You could at least ask and answer each other, right? If that is not there, all you can do is look at each other. You can just observe each other and just see each other as weird humans, right? And you just see the differences all the time.
Exactly. And I also feel like, at least when it comes to Sweden, it's not easy to come in communication with a Swede. You have to really put a lot more effort into building a relationship with a Swede. And in my personal opinion, this happens because they are already home. They have their friends. They have their circles already formed. You are the outsider who comes to live in their country, and they are unaware about it. They are already living their lives with their friends. So you need to add more effort into getting to know them. So basically that is the reason. So I think like it might be the same with all the countries. Like if you think about US, Australia, Canada, I don't know, like where people really move towards, it must be hard for them to actually meet the native people who live there and kind of have this conversation like how...
Also, it depends on the luck. In a way, you're lucky if you move young.
Yes.
If you automatically get into a setting of a school, a local school, you will become a part of the country. There's no question about it.
That's a good point. Very
Also,
good point.
it's less racism on children. It's somehow like they're seen as still quite open, empty pieces of paper that could still be filled, innocent in a way.
I don't know about modern children because they're so connected to, I don't know, all kinds of shit networks like TikTok, Instagram, always watching YouTube reels. So they are also in many ways affected by adults from around the world who has their own viewpoints. So
everybody's affected by everything. What I'm saying is, if we're talking about racism, adults are less racist on children from with another skin color than an adult.
Yeah, because it's less of a threat.
Yes.
And they can be easily modeled to the values they think is important. So it makes sense.
And they are likely to thrive in the future because they're given the opportunity to be in a school, for example, and get the peers and become a part of the local community. It's easier than for an adult.
Yes, who moves for a job.
For that, you would need, I mean, unless they're educated, that's another question. But if you are not moving because you are educated, you want to work, you move because you are a war refugee, for example, then maybe you're not from a circumstance that you can just like comfortably integrate. You'd be moving with a crisis, probably with your family or left them behind. Maybe you have a post-traumatic stress disorder. You are absolutely not fit to just like try to be nice to the locals and get to know people. You're like
suffering inside.
You're suffering, you're scared. There's so many problems. So it's so much harder. And in Sweden, for example, and in many other countries, probably like Germany, that took a lot of refugees 2014. But here we have like programs a little bit for refugees, let's say, who are refugees, interracial programs. So they can meet others and they can meet some locals that work with that and help them to educate them about the system.
And the culture.
So that's nice. It's not enough, but it's a good start, but it's an absolute base. They have a longer road to go.
And why do you think that people have a hard time to understand? End of the day, I mean, even if people look different, end of the day, they are all human beings who needs to be respected. Do you think that, for example, when you move to the West from a third world country, the expectation is that, oh my God, the literacy of this place should be high, considering the kind of resources they have, and they should be more understanding. So why do you think that happens? Like someone comes here and they're not understood.
I think many understand them, but then many don't. Because even a country can be in general like well educated and informed and so forth, but there's always gonna be these people that are a little bit afraid of these new people that look different, that potentially would take their jobs or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's very understandable as well. I would say, and this is like something we talked before about, when students comes to study from different countries to Europe, basically, legally, the reason why they are moving here is to study, the reason why they're coming, finish their studies and get a job in what they specialize. Could be engineering, could be something else. If it's an Indian, I cannot talk about all the countries. But you're not supposed to go and work on a restaurant and try to stay there in the restaurant because it affects the work environment of a local native person. So when rules are broken, in a sense, you come on false pretenses and you start taking on the local jobs.
Study and work in a restaurant as a part-time job. Is that a problem?
I'm not talking about part-time job. Part-time job is absolutely fine. People can do that. I'm trying to tell you, that shouldn't be the reason.
Even a full-time job. I mean, I feel like many locals, they're more concerned about post-educational jobs being taken.
I think the only way to get post-educational jobs is to be actually qualified for the job.
Yes.
And if there is someone more qualified, it is fine. Whereas if you go for an unqualified job, like I don't think you need a qualification to serve a tea to a table. Anyone could do it.
And most anyone doesn't want to do it, so they're not concerned about not getting that job.
Maybe. But how I would say is that if there is a humongous population of people coming and taking all the local jobs, I don't think, if, for example, if you take Sweden, I don't think everyone in Sweden is so highly educated. I'm telling, there is a good group of people who's highly educated, but not everyone is as ambitious to get a job on an engineering firm, because life is more easy. So it is fine to work a part-time job.
Sure. Yeah, but usually the part-time jobs are for studying people. And that's the thing. Local studying do work part-time, because otherwise you would work full-time, and it's not very common also that nowadays it's hard to pay rent with those type of salaries.
And if you look at the rules changes, we are going a little bit off topic, but we'll come back to racism in a moment. If you look at the changes in rules, if you look at into Sweden, you can understand like the newest rule is about minimum payment should be anywhere around 30,000 crowns, or I might be wrong with the exact figure, but it's nowhere around like a minimum. They are trying to only bring people who is highly educated, because they don't want...
you need to give more context to the viewer.
I mean, what I was trying to say is that for
the PR or what is it?
Okay, so people who are moving to Sweden for studies, if they want to stay here, they have to get a job with the minimum high salary. And they increased it from, say, like 10,000 crowns, might be a little bit more than 1 lakh in India, to 3 lakh or up. And the reason was that they don't want people to come here and take local people's job, which is very understandable. Because if that happens in large amounts, then suddenly a lot of population that actually wants to get job in a restaurant, or I don't know, like mopping a floor or whatever, they will have trouble.
I think it's mostly that system was integrated, so to say, is to control the type of immigrants we get. We want to get only the immigrants that are educated, and how we calculate it is by the salary they can get.
Which is the easiest way to understand the value. I'm not saying it's the best way, but it makes sense, like what kind of education they have. Now, another question. How does globalization contribute to racism? Or what I'm trying to understand is that the whole reason why people are moving around the world is because of globalization, right? So do you think that kind of contributed to people having conflict with each other?
And of course, if you can't move to another country, to another continent, then there will be less racism. And there's not going to be a situation of two different colors meeting, so to say. It's a good start point. So absolutely, and it also has a lot to do with resource allocation because of globalization. Like, for example, people from rich countries would move to, or would go travel to cheaper countries, the warm countries, for example, Thailand.
Asian places where they can live for a very long time with a lower
time, but that's where they would go for vacation, and maybe they would take advantage of whatever there is there, including illegal things.
Yes, definitely.
And so, together with that, a view is built of a white superior person, and maybe an Asian person would become inferior because they would be the servant. They would be the caregiver, and they would be also taken advantage of in illegal ways. So it's like the world is definitely divided by two. Also, how the big companies in the West are taking all the labor in the...
All the good people who have the brain to their country, and not to say anything bad, but then treating them badly.
Oh, that's not what I was talking about.
That's what I wanted to talk about. What I was trying to say is, like, by globalization, people are actually moving abroad and some of them actually is qualified to be there to solve a problem that society have. And then once they are there, they're not welcomed in. So I think like government also have a role in making sure the people who come there for a reason.
It's like countries have PTSD after war refugee crazy inflow, right? It's like a country has a PTSD or something. So now all kinds of refugee or all kinds of immigration super scary. So like panic trying to control it.
Again, putting people in a neat box so they understand.
We're trying to in different ways, and maybe it's not the best way, but yeah.
Okay, now next question is like, why do you think people move and come to another country even if they feel unwelcomed? What would you say from your point of view from Europe? Why do you people still come here?
Because of need.
Because of need? What kind of need?
If there's a war in my country, I will probably flee somewhere there isn't, if I can, and possibly where I could maybe get help. So yeah, so people will go there.
And you can see that.
That's one part of the other part is maybe for the same type of education, I will get much better pay in other country if I get to get employed in that place, right?
Yes.
Super valuable.
So you feel like either there is instability in their country or they would like to have a better
opportunities, better
and
healthcare, all kinds of things.
And if you look at like all kinds of wars that's going around, like back in time there was war with Iraq, there was war within Syria. Most of these wars are proxy wars that is done by Western countries because they don't want to have that war in their land, right? So in many ways, might not be the problem with like a simple citizen. They just live their life. But their government does have a role in destabilizing these poor countries on the side or kind of using out their resources. And then these people who live there doesn't have a chance to have a good life. So I feel like people should also understand about why people move, the reasons behind the instability in that land.
Yeah, but in the end of the day, it's survival of the fittest, you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit selfish like that. If we already have it good in this place, we don't want it changed. Change becomes a bit freaky because it could mean better, but it could also mean worse. Is the risk worth it?
Yeah. But sometimes it's not up to... and again, I don't want to sound really bad, but if you look at Japan, right? Japan was very against immigration for a very long time.
They're still not very good at immigration.
Yeah, but now you can see they have the highest suicide rate, one of the highest suicide rate.
That doesn't have to do with immigration.
No,
because their labor system is absolutely insane. But
and the aging population is much higher.
Because they don't reproduce, because work-life balance doesn't exist.
Why? See, like, one of the reasons why immigration was introduced was to mitigate this kind of problems that could happen in the future, right?
Japanese were too proud.
Yeah, Japanese were too proud, and I think like a lot of West is also proud.
I think Japanese think I think kind of like America, make it great again, like as if in Japan is also like that a bit historically, you know, they've been a bit better than everybody else. And
at least in their mind.
And then they have to take the consequences. And it's a bit sad because the rest of the world really loves Japan. We're like so exotifying.
Yeah. Now I have nothing against Japan. I really look like high up there.
It's cool. And it's cool because it sustained its culture and everything, right? But it's dying and that's sad.
Yeah, what I was trying to tell is more like an intelligent society makes use of resources efficiently to survive. They don't keep their pride online to make decisions. If you put your pride online, it's just a matter of time before you take the position of the other country you are looking down on. Now, back to another question. Is there a solution to this? The problem called racism? Would you say, is there any kind of solution?
Just like the first question, it was about, is it possible to solve? Is there a solution? No. But yeah, each country has their own way to do. I mean, per person, how do you behave? You also have responsibility, but what does the media show? What does the government say? What do they do? You know, if politicians are publicly racist on their speeches, like that's a good start of, shit going down. Like basic stuff can be solved.
And that is because it's easy to align.
And how we get votes too. People see when it comes to politics, that's a big problem. But politics is a problem for racism. If there's politics, I think racism will continue, honestly. Because some politicians, some politics, they really like to take this human nature of things, of dichotomizing between us and them. Because there is a human nature to it. The fear. Bring out the fear. If you
get the votes,
people, you will get people on your side for that, for sure. Anyway.
And I again, like, since you mentioned it, I have no right to say about Western racism. Because if you go back to India, I could see that there is such a high level of polarization within religions where someone from Islam is seen in a certain way compared to someone from Hinduism or Christianity. So government back home also utilizes this fear within people. So give us the votes.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody always has to be the scapegoat. Somebody has to always have been the bad guy. It's not one person, it's a group, right?
Yes. So the conclusion I would say is that I wouldn't say there is a solution to it, but anyone who feels like they don't belong in a country, either you accept it or you move to a place where you feel welcomed.
Surround yourself with people who love you, who are good. Like, you decide on who you have in your life, and you can make a small change and include other people who feel outside, build a community. You know, it's important to try to build a strength in weak places, because it shouldn't be bad. We should try to improve it everywhere.
And also, one last thing before we stop the video, always work from a higher moral compass. Just because people treat you badly doesn't mean you can treat them badly. That makes you no different from them. So always keep in that mind. Wherever you go, treat people with respect. Doesn't matter where they are from. If you can help them out with things. And that's it for today. We'll meet for the next talk later. Have a nice day, guys. Goodbye.